Hello, everyone. We have the most interesting discussion scheduled today. We've got Mark Durstewitz. He's the Vice President and Creative Director at MadElf Arts and Education, Inc. And we're talking today about using musical theater to communicate important environmental and really political concepts, especially to young people. So stick around. This is going to be a really intriguing conversation.
Welcome to the Your Mark on the World show with your champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
This episode is made possible via the support of our sponsors, including Johnson & Johnson's Caring Crowd. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're thrilled to have you and eager to learn more about this intriguing idea that you have developed to use musical theater to communicate some key principles. Tell us about what it is you're doing.
Well, long about 1991, when I first started writing the first rock musical, I had seen a lot of my friends go through absolutely brutal divorces. And so I figured, let me try and write some of this down in order to make sense of what was happening. And over the period of several years, The Children of Children was born out of that writing. That show we were very surprised because when we released the CD, it kind of went around the world on independent radio and even got some Clear Channel play, which really surprised us. It really hit a nerve. And that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to make people think about this because the story was not the typical, stereotypical story in this situation. This was about a father who was refusing to divorce his children. It was told, from the father's point of view, and a lot of it, he was no saint in the story, okay? But it was just from his point of view because I was watching so many guys go through this, So we released that, and by hook and by crook, we managed to play it at Merkin Concert Hall near Lincoln Center in New York City. We toured it through the New York, New Jersey area, eventually getting a limited run at the Bleecker Street Theater in Greenwich Village. We were very pleasantly surprised at the audience reaction. We had people coming up to us, thanking us for writing it because they apparently had been through it. So we knew we hit a nerve, okay? And so what we did while we were running it in Bleecker Street, we were finalizing the work on the initial pass for what would become Water Incorporated. We knew we wanted to write another story that had a meaning, that was something that people really had to pay attention to. We chose water based on a conversation with Peter Mann, who was the international coordinator for World Hunger Year. We mentioned the story to him at a meeting, at a dinner. And he said to me, he goes, when do you think this is taking place in your story? And I went, I don't know, 25, 30 years in the future. He shook his head violently and he said, no, it's happening right now. We need to talk. So we went in to his office one night and talked to him. And I believe it was a hydrological engineer, the guy that was with him. And they laid all of these trade publications on the table in front of us. And I flipped through them and we started to read about this stealth disaster that was basically going on. As the climate warms, water leaves the ground, leaves rivers, leaves lakes, leaves the ocean, and ends up in the atmosphere, which reduces the water available for human consumption and agriculture and everything that goes along with it. But what a lot of people don't know is that there are companies who are trying very, very hard to capitalize on this. They're buying available water sources on the ground, and in the most benign senses, they are bottling it and selling back to the people that live in the area, or they're just taking it and doing something else with it. Frequently, they're giving it to industry, which renders the water completely unusable forever. In the case of fracking, they're dumping the fracking effluent down into aquifers, and people are drinking from these aquifers. So we began to wonder, how can we make a story out of this that is not about the issue, but it's about a small group of people who are being affected by the issue? That was the hardest part of it. So what we ended up with after a lot of rewrites, a lot of head scratching, a lot of actors that read the parts back to us, so that we could watch them and listen to them, and a couple of sing-throughs, which were a lot of fun. the whole process is a lot of fun. We came up with this. The story is about the woman who owns the farm on top of the last clean freshwater aquifer, the man who owns the company that wants the water, and this terrible secret that they share. And we did that, and we started sending it to people, you know, and talking to people about it. And their basic reaction was, "Oh my God, that's unbelievable." And I said, well, water is the new oil. A lot of people don't realize this. I mean, there's an awful lot of strife and conflict in the world that when you look at it carefully enough, it boils back to fundamental resources, food and water. The Arab Spring, the quote unquote Arab Spring that happened, you know, everybody said it was about democracy. And I kind of scratched my head and I said, no, I don't think so. It turns out that summer, there was a terrible wildfire in Russia. And Russia was the source of most of the Middle East's wheat for unleavened bread. So this fire wiped out 20% of the Russian wheat crop. So Russia stopped exporting their wheat. And all of a sudden, people in the Middle East couldn't get wheat for their basic needs. Their food costs doubled overnight. And that's when the riots started. People don't, they're not paying attention. So what we aim to do with this story is say, hey, you really ought to take a look at this because it's going on everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and Mark, isn't that likely to accelerate as global warming's impact continues to manifest itself, whether we're talking about, the Horn of Africa is becoming slowly uninhabitable. Maybe I should say quickly uninhabitable. And yet, depending on how we define that region, there might be tens or hundreds of millions of people living in a place where people really can't live. They've got to go somewhere, tragic as it is. Or we've got to provide huge... Aren't we likely to see more conflict over these basic resources like food and water?
Yes. Yes, it's going to get nothing but worse. I mean, people don't understand. As the climate grips, and it's got a tight grip on all of our resources that we need to feed ourselves and to provide agriculture for ourselves. This problem is going to become exacerbated. Now, some people say, yeah, well, we can desalinize. We can put together desalinization plants, and that's going on in places like Dubai's got these huge desalinization plants, which is kind of funny because they built a city in the middle of the desert, kind of like Las Vegas, But no matter what, the water is going to end up in the atmosphere, and there are two sides to this. There is drought, in the one sense, and the story, Water Incorporated, early on in the story, two of the people in the story, they're leaving California after what has become known as the Great Los Angeles Fire. And it's really disturbing that we've come so close to, in the past couple of years, that I've gone like, oh my God, no,
Yeah.
But, I kind of wound myself into a corner with that. But you're going to have drought in some areas, and in other areas, you're going to have devastating rainfall, and if it happens during the winter, you're going to have devastating snow. A good example just happened in Austria and Germany in the high places, not way up in the mountains, but the places where there's a lot of people living and there's some industry and agriculture up there. They got 5 meters of snow a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
That's 16 feet.
That's a lot of snow.
It's 16, and it's not the first time it's happened. There was in Romania, I think about 5 years ago, it happened. They got 14 feet of snow over the course of like 8 days. And they had to drop supplies for people because you can't land a helicopter on that.
Yeah.
It'll never get off,
Yeah.
And it's just, people don't understand how important water is to the whole climate change issue. What we want to do with the show is not just simply raise awareness of this. We want to try and inspire action as well. We want to tour it through college systems. First here in the Southeast, we're North Carolina. We want to tour it through colleges and get the kids involved in the production because there are a number of what we call gang sequences, or crowd sequences. There's a climactic battle near the end. We want to get the kids involved, maybe rush the stage, and that kind of thing. But we also want to bring in environmental groups with us that can help these kids get organized in defense of their future.
Yeah.
To that end,
what do you hope the students will take away and accomplish as a result of seeing or participating in the musical?
I really hope they take away an urgency to defend themselves against the future.
And how will they manifest that? How do you hope they manifest that?
Well, if they address causes, issues local to them, like here in North Carolina, coal ash is a big problem. If they get involved in that battle, because that directly affects their water supplies here, they get involved with that, on a town level, and we go to the next town we play the show, we get a group working on what's going on there. This is an effort that has the potential to metastasize. Okay, I hate to use the word, but it's probably the most accurate depiction of it. And then you end up with these cells, and then over time, hopefully they'll team up together on regional issues, and then maybe go national issues. That mechanism is already started. If you've been watching the news with Greta Thunberg at Davos and her sitting out in front of her school at that tender age of 15, this movement is already started, and what we're hoping to do is help it get going here. When we started to talk to the North Carolina Department of Education about this, because one of the guy that is handling our fundraising told us, you need to develop a curriculum too, from middle school through high school. Whoa, wait a minute. You still there?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, my battery just went to low battery. Said to develop a curriculum for this. When I talked to the North Carolina school system about this, he goes, "You're going to do this in North Carolina?" And I said, "Yeah, we are." He said, please do this. There's nothing like this around. And when you get it done, take it to the local scientific conferences that happen. They're looking for it too. Because what we want to marry is climate change is well represented in their curriculum, okay? But what is not well represented is the connection between their First Amendment rights, the right to redress, the right to speak their minds, the right to protest, and the lobbying that's going on with the fossil fuel companies and the amount of money that's getting pushed into the government to keep perpetuating this problem. That's what we're hoping to get, just like the kids stopped their parents from smoking when you and I were kids.
Right. Well, Mark, you've been at this for a while. Your story kind of starts in 1991. What's the most important lesson you think you've learned along the way?
It takes a god-awful amount of work to do this. And you have to be tenacious. You have to be willing to talk to people who think you're mad in the beginning, and then they slowly start to see things, the way you are. And the effort is worth it. I mean, if we're going to preserve a livable climate for these kids, every lost night of sleep, every fevered prayer, when you get feeling insecure about this, because it is a very difficult thing that we're trying to do, is worth it. I have children. They're grown. They both have children. It would kill me to look into my children's and my grandchildren's eyes and say, I had something that might have helped and I didn't use it.
I hear you. That is so important. Well, Mark, why have you felt so personally connected to all this? Why especially the environment, which is such an abstract concept, really? Why does that feel so real, immediate, and personal to you?
I spent most of my youth walking around in the woods of New Jersey and New York. I grew up in New Jersey. My wife and I hike. We're both avid hikers. I have been hiking in the forests of the eastern third of the country all my life. Just in my lifetime, I have seen unbelievable changes. I grew up in a little town called Pompton Lakes, and Pompton Lakes had a Pompton Lake, big lake, okay? When I was a kid, it was not uncommon to see some guy out there doing donuts in a Buick on the lake, with a car that weighed 2.5 tons, and the ice didn't care one way or the other. We used to build bonfires on this lake when we would skate at night during the winter. Okay. The fires never went through the ice. There was a foot and a half of ice under it. It hasn't frozen like that in 35 years.
Wow.
It's really shocking. When we moved down here to be closer to our family from up north, we would hike and we would only hear or see just a handful of birds, and we would hike for hours and hours in the forest. The songbirds are largely gone up in that area. You get crows, you get jays, you get vultures because there's plenty to eat, some birds of prey, and a couple of different species of woodpecker. Down here, when I backed the truck in, down here for the first time, I opened the door and there were songbirds, and I went, "Thank you, God," because it was really, really bugging me. It's been heart-wrenching for me to watch this happen.
Yeah, interesting. Mark, what's your superpower?
What's my superpower? That's interesting. Some people would say that it's my musical ability, and I would tend to agree with them. That and story.
Excellent. Wow, those are powerful superpowers. Well, Mark, I sure appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. It's great work that you're doing at MadElf. Before you go, would you take just a minute and tell people how they can learn more about the musical, how they might be able to have it in their community? Tell them how they can connect with you personally.
Sure. My name is Mark Durstewitz, Mark Andrew Durstewitz. My initials are MAD, which a lot of people get a kick out of. I get a kick out of it. My email address is mark, M-A-R-K, at MadElf. That is M-A-D, my initials, Echo Lima Foxtrot.com. The elf is my wife and writing partner and performance partner, Christine. That's been her nickname for forever. If you can get me at that email address, you can get me also at 973-202-7578. That's my personal cell phone. I may not pick it up because I don't recognize the number. Leave a voicemail. You can find more about this show at madelf.com/water inc. That'll take you right to it. Another thing that you can do is you can Google the band name, which is Madmen and Dreamers.
Fantastic.
And that'll give you reviews from the first project and all the radio play that it got, and you'll find a lot from there.
Excellent. Well, Mark, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate you making the time and wish you every success in helping to communicate the importance of taking care of the environment.
Thank you so much for having me.
All righty. Let's do some good.
At Caring Crowd, we believe everyone has the power to make a difference. Through our crowdfunding platform for community health, we empower passionate people to drive real change. Whether you work for a nonprofit organization, volunteer, or want to get involved for the first time, you can post a campaign on Caring Crowd. Join us, because caring is where change begins.
Thank you for listening. Devin Thorpe's mission is to end extreme poverty, improve global health, and mitigate climate change before 2045 by finding and sharing the stories of those who are doing the most good. You can join with other listeners to accelerate Devin's mission by visiting helpdevin.org right now.